Welcome, my friends, to a tale of love, betrayal, and a mysterious fate that brought two souls together in the most unexpected way. Enjoy the story. Kate Johnson hung up the phone, a sigh escaping her lips as she tossed it onto the plush leather couch. Another night alone, another broken promise from her fiancé, Cole. She should have been used to it by now. The long hours, the last-minute cancellations, the endless excuses. But it still hurt. A dull ache in her chest that never seemed to go away. She had thought that Cole was different, that he understood the demands of her own high-powered career, but lately it seemed like they were living in two different worlds, two ships passing in the night. Kate wandered over to the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse apartment, staring out at the twinkling lights of the city below. She needed to clear her head, to get some fresh air and perspective. Grabbing her coat and keys, she headed out into the crisp autumn evening, her heels clicking on the polished marble floor of the lobby. The doorman tipped his hat as she passed, a sympathetic smile on his face. "Going for a walk, Miss Johnson?" he asked, holding the door open for her. Kate nodded, forcing a smile. "Just need to stretch my legs, George. I won't be long." As she stepped out onto the bustling city sidewalk, Kate let her mind wander, her thoughts drifting back to the day she had first met Cole. Flashback. Kate winced as she hobbled into the emergency room, her broken leg throbbing with every step. She had been rushing through the aisles of her favorite department store, her arms laden with shopping bags, when she had slipped on a wet spot and gone crashing to the ground. The pain had been excruciating, a white-hot agony that had left her breathless and dizzy. But even worse was the realization that she was going to miss her big meeting with the board of directors, the one she had been preparing for weeks. As she filled out the endless forms and waited for the doctor, Kate felt a tap on her shoulder. She looked up to see a tall, handsome man in a white coat, his blue eyes sparkling with concern. "Miss Johnson?" he asked, his voice deep and soothing. "I'm Dr. Cole Matthews. I'll be taking care of you today." Kate felt her heart skip a beat, a flush rising to her cheeks. She had always had a weakness for men in uniform, and this doctor was no exception. "Thank you, Dr. Matthews," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I appreciate you taking the time to see me." Cole smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "It's my pleasure, Miss Johnson. Now, let's take a look at that leg." As he examined her injury, asking questions and making notes, Kate found herself drawn to his easy charm and gentle bedside manner. He seemed genuinely interested in her, not just as a patient, but as a person. When he finished, he helped her into a wheelchair, his strong hands supporting her weight. "I'm afraid you're going to need surgery, Miss Johnson," he said, his voice apologetic. "But don't worry, we'll take good care of you." Kate's heart sank, her mind racing with all the things she needed to do. "But my meeting," she blurted out, her voice trembling. "I can't miss it, it's too important." Cole's brow furrowed, his eyes searching her face. "I understand, Miss Johnson, but your health has to come first." He paused, as if weighing his words carefully. "Tell you what, give me the details of your meeting, and I'll make sure someone from the hospital attends in your place. We have a great PR team, and I'm sure they can handle it." Kate stared at him, her mouth falling open in surprise. "You would do that for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Cole grinned, his eyes twinkling. "Of course, it's all part of the service." And as he wheeled her away to surgery, Kate felt a warmth blooming in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, she had finally found someone who understood her, who saw her for more than just her success and her money. Kate shook her head, pulling herself out of the memories. That had been 2 years ago, and so much had changed since then. She and Cole had fallen in love, their relationship growing stronger with each passing day. But lately, something had shifted. Cole seemed distant, preoccupied with his work and his own thoughts. They rarely spent time together anymore, and when they did, it felt strained and awkward. As Kate walked through the park, the leaves crunching beneath her feet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She was so lost in her own thoughts, that she didn't notice the group of gypsies until she was right in front of them. They were huddled around a small fire, their colorful skirts and scarves fluttering in the breeze. An old woman with piercing green eyes looked up as Kate approached, a knowing smile on her weathered face. "Come, child," she said, her voice thick with accent. "Let me read your fortune." Kate hesitated, her logical mind scoffing at the idea. But something about the woman's gaze drew her in, a magnetism she couldn't resist. She sat down on the bench beside the old woman, holding out her palm. The gypsy traced the lines with her fingers, her eyes closed in concentration. "You have had a hard life, child," she said, her voice soft and melodic. "A difficult childhood, filled with pain and loss. But you have risen above it, become a success in your own right." Kate's breath caught in her throat, her eyes widening in surprise. How could this woman know so much about her, about the struggles she had faced? The gypsy continued, her voice taking on a darker tone. "But be careful, child. The man you love, he is not what he seems. He is deceiving you, using you for your money and your status." Kate felt a chill run down her spine, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The old woman opened her eyes, her gaze piercing and intense. "He is not faithful to you, child. He has another, a woman he sees behind your back." Kate shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "No, that can't be true. Cole would never do that to me." But even as she said the words, doubt crept into her mind. The missed dates, the long hours at the hospital, the secretive phone calls. Could it be possible that Cole was cheating on her? The gypsy patted her hand, her touch gentle and reassuring. "I am sorry, child, but it is the truth. You must confront him before it is too late." Kate stood up, her legs shaking beneath her. She fumbled in her purse, pulling out a wad of cash. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "For everything." The old woman shook her head, pushing the money back into Kate's hand. "No, child, I do not do this for money. I do it because it is my gift, my curse, to see the truth even when it hurts." Kate nodded, tucking the money back into her purse. She walked away, her mind spinning with the gypsy's words. Could it be true? Could Cole really be cheating on her? She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. She needed answers, and she needed them now. Kate strode into the hospital, her heels clicking on the polished floors. She had tried to call Cole a dozen times, but he hadn't answered. She was done waiting, done being kept in the dark. She approached the nurse's station, a fake smile plastered on her face. "Hi, I'm looking for Dr. Matthews. Can you tell me where I might find him?" The nurse looked up, her eyes widening in recognition. "Oh, you must be Kate, Cole's fiancé, right?" Kate nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "That's right. Is he here?" The nurse's brow furrowed, her eyes darting away. No, he's not. He's on vacation, actually, with Nurse Anna." Kate felt like she had been punched in the gut, the air rushing out of her lungs. "What?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The nurse bit her lip, her eyes filled with sympathy. "I'm sorry, honey. I thought you knew. They've been seeing each other for months now." Kate shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, that can't be true. Cole would never do that to me." But even as she said the words, she knew they were a lie. The gypsy had been right. Cole had been deceiving her, using her for her money and her status. She turned away, her heart breaking into a million pieces. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "for telling me the truth." And with that, she walked out of the hospital, her world shattered beyond repair. Kate sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She had driven to the resort where she knew Cole and Anna were staying, her mind filled with rage and betrayal. She had loved him, trusted him with her heart and her future. And all along, he had been lying to her, cheating on her with another woman. As she walked into the lobby, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of them, she heard a familiar laugh. It was Cole, his arm draped around a pretty blonde woman in a skimpy bikini. Kate felt her blood boil, her vision turning red with anger. She marched over to them, her fists clenched at her sides. "Well, well, well," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. What do we have here? Cole's head snapped up, his eyes widening in shock. Kate, what are you doing here? Kate laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. What am I doing here? I think the better question is, what are you doing here? With her? Anna smirked, her eyes filled with malice. Oh, didn't Cole tell you? We're in love. Real love, not the fake kind he had with you. Kate felt like she had been slapped, her eyes filling with tears. How could you do this to me, Cole? I loved you. I trusted you. Cole shrugged, his eyes cold and unfeeling. I'm sorry, Kate, but you were just too old for me. Too boring. I need someone who can keep up with me, who understands my needs. Kate shook her head, her heart shattering into a million pieces. You bastard! You used me, made me think you loved me. But all you wanted was my money, my status. Cole grinned, his teeth flashing white in the sun. Well, can you blame me? With your money, we can buy a yacht, travel the world, live the life we've always dreamed of. Kate felt something snap inside her, a rage so powerful that it threatened to consume her. She lunged at Cole, her fists pummeling his chest. You will never have my money, you hear me? She screamed, her voice raw with emotion. You will never have anything from me ever again. And with that, she turned and ran, her heart shattered beyond repair. Kate walked through the park, her eyes blurred with tears. She couldn't believe how foolish she had been, how easily she had been taken in by Cole's charm and lies. As she approached the gypsy camp, she saw the old woman sitting by the fire, her eyes closed in meditation. Kate walked over to her, her hands trembling as she held out a wad of cash. Thank you, she said, her voice choked with emotion, for warning me about Cole. I should have listened to you sooner. The gypsy opened her eyes, a sad smile on her face. I am sorry, child, but the truth is never easy to hear. She took the money from Kate's hand, but only a small portion of it. You will need the rest, child. For your future. Kate shook her head, confusion clouding her features. What do you mean? What future? The gypsy's eyes sparkled with mischief, a knowing grin spreading across her face. You will find love again, child. A love so strong, so pure that it will last a lifetime. Kate scoffed, her heart hardening with bitterness. I don't believe in love anymore, not after what Cole did to me. But the gypsy just smiled, her voice soft and melodic. Believe what you will, child, but remember my words. You will know this man when you see him, for he will be the one you almost kill. Kate stared at her, her mouth falling open in shock. But before she could ask any more questions, the gypsy turned away, her attention focused back on the fire. Kate walked away, her mind reeling with the gypsy's words. A new love? A man she would almost kill? It seemed impossible, like a cruel joke after all she had been through. As she got into her car, her vision blurred with tears. She didn't see the man crossing the street. She slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The man flew onto the hood of her car, his body crumpling like a rag doll. Kate screamed, her heart pounding in her chest as she ran to the man's side. He was unconscious, his face pale and still. But as she knelt beside him, her hands shaking as she checked for a pulse, his eyes fluttered open. He looked up at her, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Are you an angel? He whispered, his voice weak and thready. Kate shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, I'm not an angel. I'm the woman who almost killed you. But the man just smiled, his hand reaching up to brush a strand of hair from her face. Then I must be the luckiest man alive, to be almost killed by someone so beautiful. And with that, his eyes closed, his body going limp in her arms. Kate sat by the man's bedside, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched him sleep. It had been 2 months since the accident, and he had been in a coma ever since. The doctors had told her that it was a miracle he had survived at all, that the impact should have killed him instantly. But somehow, against all odds, he had pulled through. Kate had stayed by his side every day, reading to him, talking to him, holding his hand. She didn't know why, but she felt a connection to him, a bond that she couldn't explain. As she watched him now, his face peaceful in sleep, she felt a flutter in her chest, a warmth that she hadn't felt in a long time. Suddenly his eyes fluttered open, his gaze locking with hers. "Hey there," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse. Kate felt tears spring to her eyes, a smile spreading across her face. "Hey yourself. Welcome back to the land of the living." The man grinned, his hand reaching out to take hers. "I never left. I could hear your voice, guiding me back." Kate's heart skipped a beat, her breath catching in her throat. "You could hear me?" He nodded, his eyes filled with warmth and affection. "Every word. You saved my life, Kate, in more ways than one." Kate shook her head, guilt washing over her. "But I almost killed you. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to." But the man cut her off, his finger pressing against her lips. "Shh, don't apologize. You gave me a second chance, a new lease on life, and I'm not going to waste it." He sat up in bed, his hand cupping her face. "Kate, I know this might sound crazy, but I feel like I've known you my whole life, like we were meant to find each other." Kate felt a tear slip down her cheek, her heart swelling with emotion. "I feel it too, like it was fate bringing us together." 2 years later. Kate stood at the altar, her white dress shimmering in the candlelight. Beside her, Anthony stood tall and proud, his eyes filled with love and devotion. They had been through so much together, had overcome so many obstacles, but through it all, their love had only grown stronger, more unshakable. As they exchanged their vows, their voices thick with emotion, Kate felt a sense of peace wash over her, a feeling of rightness, of belonging. She had spent so long chasing after the wrong things, the wrong people. But now, standing here with Anthony, she knew that she had finally found her place in the world. As they walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, their friends and family cheering them on, Kate leaned in close to Anthony's ear. "I guess I had to almost kill you to get you to marry me," she whispered, a teasing glint in her eye. Anthony laughed, his arm tightening around her waist. "And I would have gladly died 1,000 deaths just to be with you." Kate shook her head, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Let's try to avoid any more near-death experiences, shall we? I kind of like having you around." Anthony grinned, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Well, if you insist. But where's the fun in that?" Kate laughed, her heart lighter than it had ever been. She knew that there would be challenges ahead, that life was never easy. But with Anthony by her side, she felt like she could take on the world, like she could face anything, as long as they were together. And as they danced the night away, lost in each other's arms, Kate knew that she had finally found her happily ever after. It had been a long and winding road, filled with heartbreak and betrayal. But in the end, it had all been worth it, because it had led her to Anthony, to the love of her life, the man who had shown her what true happiness really meant. As the music swelled and the stars twinkled above, Kate closed her eyes and made a silent wish. A wish for a lifetime of love and laughter, of joy and adventure. A wish for a future filled with endless possibilities, as long as they faced it together. And as she looked into Anthony's eyes, saw the love and devotion shining back at her, she knew that her wish had already come true. For she had found her soulmate, her partner in every sense of the word. And together, they could weather any storm, overcome any obstacle. As long as they had each other, nothing else mattered. And that was the greatest gift of all.